back to 0, so.
So as you're finishing up, you need to just add up each of those columns 1 through 4. And on the next page, on page 4, you're going to see your scores interpreted. So as you can guess, column 1 lists words and phrases that are typically used to describe the winter season of marriage. So you can see your score there. Column 2 represents spring. Column 3, summer. And finally, the last column, column 4, represents fall. Again, those columns with the most points reflect the current season of your marriage. That's typically about where you're at with the highest score. A close or equal score between two seasons, maybe between, say, summer to fall or spring to summer, suggests your marriage has elements of both seasons. And you may even be in transition between one season to the next. The highest possible score for any season, obviously, is 16. So if you're scored a 16 in one of those columns, like it's just, that was the column you answered yes and all the way down, that indicates your marriage is in a deep in that season. So if you answered that 16 for, say, spring or summer, you're deep into spring or deep into summer. So after you look at it, there's some questions there on page 4. It just says, do you agree with your scores? Are you surprised by them? Then it says, compare your answers with your spouse. Did you put yourself in summertime and your spouse answered winter? I mean, hopefully you're not that far apart on your answers. But that's something that you can take some time to discuss and say, well, how did you handle that? What did you answer? So you're going to have either some positive things or negative things to bring about in those seasons as you talk with each other. If you're in an enjoyable season, then congratulations. Things look pretty good. Keep up the good work. If you're not in an enjoyable season, don't give up. Regardless of the season of your marriage, there's hope and there's room for improvement. And commit yourself to work for the best possible marriage it says that you can have. Now on page 5 and on page 6, a lot of the things that I just spoke of, with each of those seasons of marriage, spring, summer, fall, and winter, they're described there. So the emotions, the attitudes, the actions, the climate of the relationship, it's kind of detailed out there. So you can kind of really look and get a better picture of those seasons. And just how you can really maybe identify with one or the other better from just hearing what I spoke of just a little bit ago. Remember, seasons can change. That's not set in stone forever, whether it's good or bad. So just because you're in a good season right now, you got to work to stay there. If you're in a bad season right now, we need to do some work to not stay there. You want to move from one to the other. If things are not where you want them to be, the next question normally we start to ask ourselves, say that you're in a season that you don't want to be in. A lot of times you start to ask this question. It says, well then, who's to blame? You say, well, I know who the blame is, and we want to do this or to do that. Well, it's obviously him. It's obviously her. You just want to blame the other spouse. We're great at describing the problems in terms of our mate's behavior. You know that? We're very good at picking out all the little things that's wrong with them. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with her? Oh, if you got an hour, let me just tell you everything that's wrong with them. I'll just tell you right now. My problem is my husband, or my problem is my wife. I'm basically a nice person. You get to know me, I'm pretty nice. But he or she has made me just miserable. That's why we're in the fall. That's why we're in winter. That's why I am so upset and grumpy all the time, or whatever it is. We just want to blame the other person. That's just easy to do. We were looking at Genesis 2, or into Genesis 3 last week, I believe. I think we talked a little bit about this. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, and then Eve bit the fruit, then God came down and said, Adam, where are you? Goes to Adam and searches him out and basically asking him, what's going on? And he says, well, the woman, that you gave me. So he blamed two people. He blamed Eve, and then he blamed God. Well, it's your fault, God, because you gave her to me. I was, like I said, I was just fine with the animals, just naming them one by one, and I was having a good old time until she came along. Thanks, God. That was his response. And then Eve was kind of like, well, the serpent, I'm just there, just picking fruit, and then he basically tricked me. I listened to the serpent. So she blamed me. She pointed the finger as well. We just believe if the other one would change, if the other one would just do things a little bit differently, then we could have a good marriage. If they would just listen, if they would just do this, do that, then things would be better. Looking into the next exercise, we're kind of in getting into the last parts of it here. But over the next 3 minutes, in the back part of it where your notes are at, or if you have a notebook, you can do this as well. But in the back, there's some pages where it just says notes. So turn back there. And here's what I want you to do right now. As we were just talking about, who to blame, Over the next 3 minutes, I want you to write for me the list of things that you dislike about your partner. Whether it's a couple words, whether it's a sentence, it could turn into a paragraph, I don't know. But just write some things down that you dislike. Okay, these are dislikes about your partner. Some of them might need more than 3 minutes, but just write down a few things. If it's just 1 or 2 things, that's fine. But just take some time just to write down some things that you dislike about your partner.
Oh, seriously, honey?